Welcome to Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode 94. Hi, I'm Jill. Thanks for joining us today. This is the podcast for the Becoming Ellie community.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're curious about why we're called Becoming Ellie, it's because Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging. She defeated Thor in a wrestling match, and so we decided we wanted to be like Ellie.
You can find out more about us at the Becoming Ellie website. We have lots of great content there.
The website is becomingellie.com, and Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I. Jill, I'm really looking forward to our episode today.
Finding Karese Laguerre to be a guest on our podcast felt like such a victory. Chris and I are always on the lookout for someone who can talk about sleep with us. One thing the Becoming Ellie community seems to be in agreement about is how important it is to improve the quality of our sleep.
Oh, that's for sure. Sleep is so important and can be such a challenge sometimes. Let's go to the podcast.
Karese Laguerre, like many parents, suffered in silence while her children struggled with the symptoms of undiagnosed sleep and breathing issues. One visit to a pediatric dentist changed the trajectory of their lives. Already a registered dental hygienist, Karese trained with Sandra Holtzman, Lois, Laynee, and Sarah Hornsby to establish her Orofacial Myology knowledge. With this initial training and numerous others in a few short years, she has not only resolved all of her children's issues, but helped hundreds of patients, children, and adults alike discover how great life can be functioning in full.
Her private practice, the Myo Spot, is now a leader in the quest for myofunctional therapy awareness and public education. Her latest published book, Accomplished, delves into how to sleep better, eliminate burnout, and execute goals. Karese's mission is to transform and positively impact as many households as possible through dynamic breath, brain, and body work.
Wow, welcome, Karese, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Let's just start with the basics. What is myofunctional therapy and how does it help us?
Yes. Well, myofunctional therapy is kind of like personal training. So I like to liken it to that because I think it's the easiest way to understand it. But I work with all the muscles below the eyes, but yet above the shoulders. So we're working with the hundreds of muscles that are in between that area. So the orofacial muscles and some of the oropharyngeal muscles to help strengthen and coordinate them, because these are all the boundaries of our upper respiratory system. So the foundations of health are really going to start with this area. So we're helping to strengthen, coordinate them, and get better function. It helps better breathing, chewing, digestion, mental health, sleep, so many things.
Hundreds of muscles. I guess I never really thought about any other muscles than when I smile too much and it hurts.
Can you ever really smile too much?
Well, sometimes I find myself like a little cramp going in the back of my jaw because I can't stop smiling. But it's funny, when I think of working out, I don't think of my face or my neck. So this is really quite interesting. Your book is titled Accomplished: How to Sleep Better, Eliminate Burnout, and Execute Goals. That really promises a lot.
Yeah.
How does poor sleep impact health and productivity?
So poor sleep is going to impact so many facets of your life, but I really focus on the impact that it has on your cognitive function. And that's where we have our most research anyway. Cognitive function becomes incredibly impaired because during sleep, that's the only time that the brain is able to restore itself. So we have our lymphatic system, we have our kidneys, we have our liver, we have a bunch of different things that are always trying to detox and cleanse the body. Our brain does not do its own cleansing process unless we're sleeping. So when you're not getting good quality sleep, you're not cleansing your brain, you're not able to retain memory, you're not able to achieve adequate or even, substantial cognitive function the next day. It's going to impact so many aspects of your life because we need our brain for all sorts of function, for our essential functions of all the organs and for just daily life to be able to think and process and problem solve and just be aware.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
I've lost a book in my house and I keep thinking, how could I forget where I put it? I probably didn't sleep that night that I put the book someplace.
Yeah, I know when I don't sleep enough, I can't function very well at all. It takes me 3 times as long to do anything.
The therapy that you do, what actually is it? I mean, exercises for your face?
Yeah, I love that. Great question. So yes, I liken it to personal training because while I am working directly with muscles, we're really working on retraining those muscles, repatterning a lot of those muscles, right? So we do different exercises and some types of activities because we like to integrate it into your daily life. That way you're more likely to retain these new patterns and skills. So exercises and activities, but it's very much like personal training in that if you work out with a personal trainer once a week and then, you go home, you sit on the couch and eat cheese doodles the rest of the time, you're not going to get any results, right?
Right.
So when you work with a myofunctional therapist, yes, I do teach you exercises and activities, but you've got to practice and work on them and work out every day those muscles. That way we can get and achieve those goals. So it really looks like personal training for those muscles.
Excellent. Okay. How does doing this actually improve our sleep? I mean, how does the therapy improve our sleep?
So a lot of problems that stem with sleep for many, many people can be linked back to the way that they're breathing. So there's a myriad of sleep disorders that fall under sleep disordered breathing. So when you're not breathing adequately, you're not oxygenating well, and it's going to impact the brain function. You're not going to be able to get into all of the stages of sleep. You're not going to be able to cycle through REM adequately. And that's really the restorative phase of sleep, where your brain is actually detoxing, where your body and your cells are actually rejuvenating. You're not going to be able to adequately reach those stages without getting optimal oxygenation. So many people snore, and everybody thinks that that's normal, but it's not necessarily normal. It's common, right? So that's your first sign that there's something going on with your sleep. Because if we think about what snoring is, it's the sound of air meeting resistance as it's passing through your upper respiratory system. Nothing about that sounds normal and or healthy. So already you're getting an inadequate amount of oxygen because those soft tissues are starting to relax as you're going down to bed. The whole body starts to relax, right? But imagine if those muscles were toned and tightened and able to actually stay open and allow a great flow of oxygen. Then you're getting a lot better sleep, a lot better ability to cognitively restore, and you're able to actually, be more productive.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Wow. I know some friends that are on a Cpap machine, and I'm wondering, does myofunctional therapy get people off their Cpap machines? Is that something?
So I never like to promise it to anybody. It has been researched to definitely help with the adherence to a Cpap, right? Because what a Cpap is, it's continuous positive airway pressure. So it's forcibly pushing air down. That way it's keeping everything nice and open. Just like how I mentioned, if those muscles were toned and tightened and open naturally. So we have had lots of people who are able to get off of their Cpap. But then there are some who are just better able to tolerate it because they're able to achieve whatever muscular opening that they're able to get naturally through working out with myofunctional therapy. But it is incredibly helpful because having that opening, being able to breathe through that upper respiratory system is key.
So even if you have to continue using the Cpap, it makes it more comfortable or
exactly
bearable. I mean, I know some people just absolutely hate using their Cpap, and so then they don't adhere to, they quit using it, basically.
Exactly. That's actually most people. They only have about a 30% rate of usage. So CPAPs are commonly prescribed and people are given them, but only about 30% of the people who get it actually use it.
Didn't realize that.
So, all right. So if you're not breathing well, you're not getting the oxygen while you're sleeping, then that is affecting the oxygen that's going to your brain, which is trying to cleanse itself, but it doesn't have basically the energy, what it needs to really process properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's disrupting your sleep.
It disrupts your sleep immensely.
Wow. So I think the CPAP is most often prescribed for sleep apnea, which is when you quit breathing and jolt awake frequently throughout the night. But there are other sleep disorders related to breathing?
Yes. So there's a whole, I guess, umbrella sleep disordered breathing. There's, upper airway resistance syndrome. There are actual multiple forms of obstructive sleep apnea. So there's mixed, there's central, and then obstructive, where it's really just musculature in nature. So yes, there's a number of sleep disorders, right, where we can all classify them based upon the fact that it has to do with the way that you're able to respirate. You're able to respire. Okay. And the biggest issue that I find is that there's not enough people aware of the importance of breathing, yet we need it more than we need anything else. I mean, we talk a lot about diet and exercise, but we could go our whole lives without exercising. We'd be fine. We could go for weeks without food. We could go for days without water. But how many of us would last even 10 minutes without air?
Right.
Nobody.
I don't even want to think about a minute, because you breathe like 12 breaths, 13 breaths. I don't know what it exactly is, but something like that, isn't it? A minute?
Yes. We do breathe. Yes, our breathing rate does vary between individuals, but yes, you want to aim for 10 to 12 breaths a minute.
Just talking about this makes me want to breathe more.
And you should. We all should.
I know my Fitbit now tracks sleep things, and it includes information like your oxygen saturation and breaths per minute and heart rate variability. I forget what else, but do you find that to be helpful information? I mean, I actually look at it because I find it kind of interesting, but I don't really know
what to do with the information.
So I go,
right?
that's cool.
Because I do the same thing, Jill.
It can be helpful. It definitely can be. I wouldn't say it's the end all be all, because there's so many different factors that can be put in there. It's technology, right? So it's not like having an actual sleep study where you have a person who is able to read this data. So with the technology, the most important things to look at are, yes, that oxygen saturation. You don't want that to fall anywhere below, I would say, honestly, below 95. Anything below that and you're staying in that range for too long, that's a problem. And then the second thing you want to watch are your sleep stages. If it's able to track your sleep stages, how long are you in REM? Is that 30 to 40% of your sleep? If it's not, we have a problem. It's time to look into how we can really get better restorative, regenerative sleep. And that might be a good point in time to, ask for some form of help.
Okay, that's interesting. Yes, mine does tell me my different sleep stages.
Mine tells me deep sleep and REM and light sleep and awake. And I'm always amazed at how much awake it says, because I'm thinking there's no way, but I can feel it.
Right. It's those intermittent bursts where you're waking up and, you roll over maybe, or you don't want that to be the bulk of your sleep. That light sleep should not be the bulk of your sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You want to cycle through all the stages, but definitely spend a good amount of time in REM, because that's restorative. That's your body actually doing all the work it has to do.
Yeah. That's when it cleans out the trash. It takes out the trash.
Right. It cleans your brain. Right.
Exactly. You're able to retain memories. You're able to get better muscular function. Everything is restoring and regenerating. We get our healing. You're able to do all the things that your body is trying to do when we're sleeping, because we don't sleep for a third of our lives for nothing. This is essential bodily functions. So when we're sleeping, we have to make sure that we're actually hitting all those stages, because there's resting and then there's sleeping, and we want to sleep.
So if I look at my numbers and I say, geez, I'm only getting 15% of my sleep is in REM, I probably should start doing some investigation on what's going on in my sleep.
Yes. And I would say that if you want to first seek out some sort of like self-help, right? What's something you can do to help yourself right away?
Yeah.
Incorporate a nasal hygiene routine into your daily life. So having a good nasal hygiene routine is going to be the start of it. You want to cleanse out the nasal passages, okay? So everything's all connected. Why we have an ear, nose, and throat doctor, because there's all one track. It's all a part of each other, right? So we want to cleanse out the nose. That way we get our nasal and our pharyngeal systems cleansed with a saline rinse. Use a saline rinse. So some people like to go full out, neti pot and like really cleanse and clear with one of those things that are flowing in one nostril, flow out the other.
Yeah.
You just want to use a nasal spray, a natural nasal spray that has a saline, and you're just going to cleanse it out 2 or 3 sprays every day to cleanse out. Phenomenal. And then that's going to help keep it nice and open. Okay. So we want it to be clear so that you're able to have things pass through. You don't want your sinuses, people with postnasal drip and people who have the sinusitis that's always draining and they feel like there's stuff caught in the back there. That's inhibiting your respiratory tract. So if the more you cleanse out, the better it will be. So you have to establish nasal hygiene routine and see if that helps any of your numbers. If it's not helping your numbers, there's probably something deeper going on. And then I would say, get help, professional help.
Like talk to your doctor?
Talk to your doctor, seek out a myofunctional therapist, seek out a sleep physician or a sleep coach. You want to see somebody who is knowledgeable about sleep.
Okay, so we could start with you or someone like you before we actually went to a sleep doctor if we wanted.
Yes, because what I do is more of like an alternative health.
Okay.
Taking it just a different route.
Okay. Or if I went to a sleep doctor and he or she said, whatever, I might try you as opposed to, and he said, you're going to have to go on the Cpap. I might try you to avoid that. Just like I try to avoid taking whatever. I might
avoid surgery and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people who try myofunctional therapy to avoid different types of surgery. People who need jaw surgeries or any other type of, turbinate nasal surgeries and so forth. There are alternative methods.
Okay, well, that actually brings up a question because I have struggled with TMJ over the years.
What's TMJ stand for?
Temporomandibular joint.
It's your jaw.
Okay.
I'm sorry. TMJ, thank you for saying what it actually stands for, but it's your jaw. The muscles in my jaw would get so sore, tense that I had a lot of problems. Like it caused when I first had it diagnosed, I thought I had ear infections and I went to an ENT and he said, you have TMJ. And so this was when I was in my early 20s. So a long time ago. And he said, basically other than doing surgery, there's nothing you can do. Well, I didn't want to have surgery.
Really?
So I thought, this is not too bad. So then I went to a dentist who said, well, I can at least make you a bite plane thing.
Yeah.
And that helped. But over the years, then I found like a massage person who did TMJ treatment. And at any rate, it's something I've struggled with off and on for decades. And most of the time now I'm fine. But so when I saw on your website that you can help with TMJ, my little radar went off like, oh, I have to make sure to ask about this. So how do you help with things like TMJ or when your jaw gets out of alignment or whatever?
When it's muscularly involved and not like a bone deficiency and or a structural thing, because there are people who are born where the jaw joint just doesn't fit right or it's deteriorating rapidly. So when muscular in nature, and that's why it's occurring, that's where a myofunctional therapist comes in. So when you said that you got a lot of help from your massage therapist, that is phenomenal because that means it's more of a muscular issue, right?
It was very painful, but it helped.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. What we do is we help to relieve a lot of the tension because when you're using some of those muscles wrong, it wears down on the jaw joint. It will wear down on the fluid there. So then you're riding more on the joint, which becomes a bone-on-bone contact where there's supposed to be fluid kind of buffering. And then that becomes painful. It starts to dislodge itself, or over time, it really starts to compound, right? The impacts of that soft tissue dysfunction. So what we do is we really help to coordinate better muscle function. How do we relax these muscles? What kind of exercises, what kind of activities can we do to better align you and get new neuromuscular patterning? That way you're able to achieve a more stable function of your jaw joint.
Okay.
So is this something that you have to go to an expert to have them do, like a massage therapist? Or is this something that you can do the myofunctional therapy on your own? How does it work?
So because we do a lot of the orofacial, we're like the expert of the orofacial muscles, right? And so how they function, how they move, you really do need a professional to give you that. This is where we have to target. This is what we're doing. This is what we're working on. Can you do muscle exercises on your own? Absolutely. Nowadays, you can go on the internet and you can literally figure out anything. If I need a new roof, I can find a video on YouTube and I can go fix my roof. But,
that's true. I was going to ask, well, can we just go to YouTube?
Well, I could maybe know how to do it, but I don't think I could do it.
Exactly. But sometimes it's not always the best thing to do something by yourself, right? So there is always the option of getting exercises and doing them yourself. You just can't guarantee that you'll get the best result in that way. So can you do exercises on your own? Sure. Everything's available, mass consumption on the internet. But it's really the best thing possible to work with a professional.
So you are back to, you were like a personal trainer in that the reason why I like to use a personal trainer is that she'll tell me that my form is incorrect or that I need to, straighten your back or whatever. And if I just watch it on YouTube, I don't get that correction. I don't get correction on how I'm doing things.
Exactly.
Right. And you might even be doing something that's harmful if you're fixing the wrong problem, right?
That is incredibly accurate. Yes. You can very well do more harm than good.
So how do we find someone who does this?
Oh, you get your Google, MD, your Google doctorate, and you just start typing in. You can type in myofunctional therapist near me, myofunctional therapy. You could just learn more. I mean,
is there like a organization that you all belong to?
There are several. There's the International Association of Airway Hygienists. There's the Academy of Orofacial Myofunctional Therapy. The best thing really, there's the IAOM. There's so many. The best thing is really to just Google it.
On one of your websites, you wrote, you deserve a life free from fatigue, hormonal imbalance, brain fog, poor immunity, multiple specialists, expensive treatments, anxiety, unnatural chemicals, pain, and false hope. So that's a lot of things to fix. And I just wonder how you accomplish all of that.
Multiple modalities, but so many things stem back into how you use your breath. It will regulate digestion. It will regulate your parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system. It will regulate how everything is moving in your body, because when you're not respirating properly, you're operating at less than your full self. And that's not just cognitively, it's also throughout the systems. It's linked to heart disease. It's linked to Alzheimer's. It's linked to depression and anxiety. It's linked to so much. Breathing is the most essential function in life. So I achieve things that I wouldn't have thought could relate back to the way people are breathing, just based on focusing on that first as our primary task. And then we incorporate a lot of other things too. So myofunctional therapy, cranial nerve integration, reflex integration, like being able to come and tackle things from multiple angles. But definitely it all stems back to breathing. That is the primary function.
Yeah, you said something in the introduction, or we said in the introduction, that your mission is to help people through dynamic breath, brain, and body work. And so the breath part, do you do breathing exercises with people?
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have to do some breath retraining too, because there are people who just aren't respirating adequately. So if you've ever heard the term diaphragmatic breathing, that's our desired method of breathing. That's the muscle that is really supporting the lungs as you are inhaling and exhaling, right? There are some people who don't use their diaphragm very much at all while they're breathing. They breathe with their chest or they breathe with their shoulders. And you see a lot of rise and fall up here. That's not adequately filling in the lungs. You'll miss the entire lower third of your lungs when you're breathing from your chest. So we do breath retraining because it's essential. Just because you breathe doesn't mean you do it well. We have to try to get to, the root of the issue from so many different angles. So I talked a lot earlier about the upper respiratory, but diaphragmatic breathing is dealing with the lower respiratory. Once we've gotten down into the lungs, what are we doing with this air now? It's very important.
Yeah, I started to laugh because I was thinking, just because we walk, just because we run, doesn't mean we're doing it right. I mean, and I guess breathing is the same way, right? Have we covered all those pieces of the dynamic breath, the brain and the body work?
I believe so. I mean, we've covered it.
I just didn't want to miss something. There's a lot there.
So much. It's so much. But yes, I love it all because it's really going to help restore in a way that people don't generally think about, but is, like I said, critical. We can't go minutes without air.
I struggle a lot with getting things done, and because I tend to procrastinate and I struggle with focus. So we won't talk about why that might be, but I do. But what unknown blocks in the brain can impact productivity, and how does myofunctional therapy tie into this?
That's a great question. Okay, so we have a lot of personal blocks and we have a lot of physical blocks. Physical blocks are a lot of the stuff that we talked about, where we were talking about air and how we're breathing and how the brain is able to restore and lack thereof. Those personal blocks within the brain, a lot of that is dealing with the mental health issues. So when we have trauma sometimes stays locked within the body and oftentimes stays locked within our mind. And that's going to deeply impact our autonomic nervous system regulation. It puts us into heavy parasympathetic or sympathetic refluxes. And then we have to deal with a lot of these issues. And so I love working in dynamic teams with multiple providers. And so we have people who work with trauma. We have people who work on lots of other methods of releasing some of these mental health blocks, because when you're unable to get over a particular hurdle, it's going to stop you from being able to achieve wellness goals that, you might think are easy. Like, I just want to lose 5 or 10 pounds. And then you're just stuck. You have no idea why you're stuck, even though you're doing all the things. It's because something mentally is holding on to something that you just have not gotten over. And so you've got to work on all sorts of blocks, not just the physical, but the things that are personal, the things that are really deeply rooted. So myofunctional therapy stems in because we're a big part of the physical blocks.
Right.
But I love my teams because we work on the personal blocks as well. And then there's simple things you can do at home too, because you can always do mindset work, affirmations. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could do on your own, just seeking counseling, therapy, joining a group, getting support. But myofunctional therapy is the big chunk of the physical.
Okay. But it could all work with therapists or people who do the sort of more emotional part.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
And I know you help both children and adults, and our audience is made up of women over 50 who are trying to be fit and healthy. So what advice would you have for us? Is there anything unique about women over 50 and how to improve our sleep, let's say, or certain exercises?
I would say that as you get older, a lot of things start to compound, right? So you find that sleep disorders are typically diagnosed in those over 50, more so men than women, but over 50, you're at a higher risk of a lot of these things. If you're seeing yourself experiencing things like more brain fog, more cognitive delays, short-term memory loss, you're having difficulty. Jill mentioned she lost the book, can't find the book. If you're having difficulty remembering multiple things within the same week, that might be a trigger that maybe there's something deeper to look into. And so perhaps we should take a better look at our sleep, and whether that's going to wear, a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or some other type of smart device to help read and track your sleep. It's very important to be able to be aware of what might be going on.
Okay. What about hormonal changes? Obviously, women who are either in perimenopause or postmenopause are dealing with hormonal changes. And how does that affect our sleep? And can you help women with that?
Those hormonal changes impact so much your body regulation. It's definitely going to impact your sleep 100% because all of the hormone influxes, everything plays into it, right? So your mood, your sleep, your ability to really restore, all of that is going to play in with the hormones. Hormones are just how we regulate. So when we have our clients that are in menopause or perimenopause, we have to be even more careful about tracking these things. I love working in teams, like I said before. So being able to be aware of certain hormone levels or what's going on by working with a physician and having these numbers, then we are able to figure out where do we need to supplement and then where do I need to target? Because sometimes I can't always work on the musculature first. You might not make any goals. We might have to do more breath retraining so that you can respirate better. It'll help a lot significantly with the regulation of certain things. I'm touching my throat now because I'm like, thyroid, that's what it is. It helps a lot. Some of the regulation with the thyroid. So yes, it is also in teams, okay? But it does help significantly to, one, be aware of the hormone levels, but then two, be able to regulate things based on breathing before we get into our musculatures. We've got to get a little bit better with our breath retraining before we can get into that.
Okay, great.
If our listeners want to learn more about you and about what you do, where should they go?
My website. So that is www.themyospot.com. I also have a blog where I write a lot. That's a whole separate website. That's Airway Matters with an S. .blog, BLG. So no .com, that's a .blog. You can learn a lot more on my website. You can learn a lot more from my blog. And I think that it's incredibly important that, you educate yourself no matter where you learn. So even if it's not my website, if you are online, find help for however you prefer it. If you are more traditional, then find yourself the right sleep physicians, find yourself the right doctors and teams. If you're more alternative, find yourself the help. I think education is the most important thing possible. So be it my website or not, help. Finding yourself the right help. You always have to advocate for yourself because nobody's going to advocate for you. The system's going to continue to do what it does.
Yeah, true.
Right. But how can people get a copy of your book?
Amazon. You can go on Amazon.com. Accomplished: How to Sleep Better, Eliminate Burnout, and Execute Goals is available on Amazon.com. It's a fantastic read. It's not too scientific. I break everything down, make it nice and easy to digest. So I think that it is a wonderful investment in your health. I have a nice little process in there that you can follow for some self-help. And if that's not enough for you, reach out. We can always find you some form of professional guidance.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This was such a pleasure. So much fun. You guys are amazing.
I guess we should say we will put links to all of that, your websites and the book in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us today. I'm going to check out your website. There's a lot there. I really want to learn more about this. I didn't really know anything about your subject matter before we started talking, so this is great.
Yes, it's sort of a step beyond, making sure your room is dark and not looking at your screens before bedtime. I mean, I'm not saying those things aren't important, but this is a little more in depth from that. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I've so appreciated it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Karese had lots of great information, didn't she?
Yes, I learned a lot from her. I did not know that I could do exercises in my face and neck, basically, to help with some of this sleep things and jaw things, lots of areas.
Yeah. I mean, I have been working on my breathing for a while, just trying to get my parasympathetic nervous system to be more intact. But I really didn't know anything about daily nasal hygiene. I mean, I didn't know that was a thing. And I feel like, I brush my teeth all the time, but so I'm going to look into some of that because I didn't realize that was a thing.
I know people use neti pots, but her idea of just, get the simple saline spray is probably
right.
Just as easy.
Yeah, they definitely have daily, non-gentle. I mean, it is gentle so that it doesn't, you don't want something that's addicting or whatever. I know there's some that you can squirt and then like 4 days later and you're addicted to it. Not that.
Yeah, but this would just be saline. So it's just water with salt.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing.
Exactly.
I'm going to look at my sleep data again because that was actually some good advice that since my Fitbit now gives me all this sleep information, I might as well look at it and see what
see how you can improve, right?
Yeah. Let's compete on my sleep stats.
Well, you're only competing with yourself. It's not something that
That's true. Well,
there's no race medals for it, but I know with a really good night's sleep, of quality sleep, I feel so much better the following day.
I really notice now that if I don't have good sleep, that I really feel terrible the next day.
Mm-hmm. I'm a grouch. I turn into a grouch. I know that.
It's very noticeable to me now that, if I haven't had adequate sleep, I'm pretty miserable. If you're listening and you have something to share about sleeping or productivity, or you have any experience with myofunctional therapy, please let us know.
Yes, you can reach out to us at our website, becomingellie.com, or email us at chris@becomingellie.com, or leave us a voicemail at 330-970-6662.
You can also find us at a lot of social media sites. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube. We also have a private Facebook group. Please feel free to join us there.
Well, it was great talking with you today, Jill. I can't wait for the next episode of Fit Strong Women Over 50.
See you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.